You can leave your kids a business, a trust fund, a last name that turns heads. But if you weren't there when they needed you the most, none of that will matter at all. Rewind back to 2004, 5, and 6, and I was building an empire in the name of providing for my family. But in reality, the 12, 14, and 16-hour days that I was spending doing other things mattered not at all to my family because I neglected to ask them what they really wanted. What does your family really want from you? In this episode today, I am going to help you to walk away with 3 incredibly important things. Number 1, clarity on the real difference between being present and just being there. Number 2, insight into how neglect can hide behind provision. And number 3 is a simple tool to begin shaping the legacy your kids will actually remember and what to follow. Let's go. Men of greatness, rise and stand tall. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Greatness, where we are here equipping high-performing Christian men to continue to crush it in business without destroying their faith and their family in the process. And so let's get right into it today. I want to talk to you about the fact that your kids want you, not just what you provide. And so what I want to do is I want to walk you through a couple of experiences that I've had, that I have witnessed in some of the men that I've coached and men that I've been around, and then a solution to help you start to walk back from this challenge that you've likely put yourself in, though you probably don't want to be there. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is, how did we get here? How did we find ourselves in a place where we are so caught up in work and our family seems to feel like we're just some kind of distant memory? Well, I think that it starts off by us believing this lie that a father is a provider. Particularly that a father is a provider exclusively, and more specifically even than that, is provision is strictly financial. You and I have probably bought into this lie that financial provision is the greatest way we can care for our families. That is what so much of the world teaches. That is so much of what so many people around us teach, the gurus teach. And let me tell you, there's a lot of wisdom in the fact that we must provide for our families. The Bible is very clear that a man that does not provide for his family is worse than an unbeliever. I mean, they are just saying that that is the worst of the worst when you will not step up to provide for your family financially. So it is important that we provide for our families, but not just financial provision. But we've bought into that lie. We've also bought into this lie that the Bible says there's a time and a season for everything, but what it doesn't mean is there's a time and a season to neglect our families as we're building our business, as we're building our financial empire. Now, let me qualify that. There are times and seasons when you're going to spend time on the road. We're going to spend more time at work in the build phases, but not to the neglect of our families. God would never call you to that, and there is no way that any of us could actually reasonably reconcile that in our own minds. I think the other thing that, I grew up in a generation where there was a lot of trust fund kids. There was a lot of people that had wealth, that were left wealth. I remember one friend in particular, he was left a significant sum of money. Man, he just destroyed himself. But I thought that was so cool. And so that looked really, really cool. And when I thought of successful people, I thought, man, they're going to leave behind a ton of money and resources for their family, for their kids and for your family and all these other people. But I was just a dumb kid. And once I matured at 30 something years old, I began to realize that kids don't measure legacy and income. They measure it in attention, in tone, and in time. And so how do you know whether or not you've bought into this lie? How do you know whether or not you're drifting? Well, here's a couple of things that I found in my own life and that I find a lot in our coaching community, in my one-to-one coaching relationships. If you are always available for a deal, if you are always available for a call from a client, but not for dinner, You may, in fact, be neglecting your family to the degree that you're hurting them. If you are checking your phone more than you're checking in with them, you may have bought in to this lie. You may be drifting. If you feel uncomfortable when your conversations with your wife and your kids go beyond the logistics of life, to and from practice, when's dinner, when are we going here, when are we doing this, have you cleaned your room? If it's transactional and logistical and you feel uncomfortable talking to your family about their faith, about their relationships, about the things of this world that matter, you may be drifting. Look, you can succeed at work and still fail where it matters most, and that's in the home. God is clear with us that we are first to honor and worship Him. Second, we are to serve and support, provide for, and protect our wives. Third, we are to do the same, provide for, and protect our children. That comes far before business, and financial provision is important. We need to put a roof over their head. We need to put food in their mouth, but not to the neglect of actually being there and showing up for them when they need us most. So let's talk about the difference. So a gentleman just recently joined our Men of Greatness community. I'll link down in the show notes if you want to check that out. We just launched on August 18th. We've seen a couple dozen guys that have jumped in already. It's a free community through the end of the year. And so we're seeing guys jump in and they're getting really, really excited. And one guy was sharing that he's found himself in this place where he's been so focused on provision that he's neglected presence. But even worse off, and this was his words, he said that when he is present with his children, he's really uncomfortable and he's really struggling. It's not because he doesn't love them, but just because he just doesn't really know how to exist around them. So let me just talk really quickly about the difference between provision and presence. And again, part of our provision is presence. So I'm not saying it's one or the other. I'm just talking about the difference between worldly provision and biblical presence. Maybe that's a good way to state it. So provision looks like this. We are solely focused on meeting our family's needs. Again, these are not bad things. But if all of our focus is on putting them in private school, it's on getting them the best clothes, making sure they have a car, making sure they go to college, if that's the focus for us as a father, we have missed. If provision for us is all about just creating safe space, meaning we're trying to protect them, we're trying to put up walls, we're trying to put up barriers, that could be a place where we are providing for, but we are not actually present for our children. Another thing that I often see, and again, this is typically done with goodwill, with a good heart and a good desire. I see a lot of men that are trying to build opportunity for the future as a good provider for their families. The problem is they end up neglecting actually being for them in the process. What good is it to send a child off to a fully paid college experience if you have not helped to set the foundation for how they should be entering into that season of life? If they don't know the guidance of a father, if they don't know of your experiences and your wisdom and your insight and your love, my Lord, your sons are going to go off and live like idiots. Your daughters are going to go off in desperation for the presence that they never had. And we know how that ends up more often than we would like to admit. So what do we do instead? We have to focus on presence. Again, this is not to the neglect of financial provision, but presence looks like this. We know our children's hearts. We just don't know what they want. We truly know what they need. We're listening. We're taking the time. And I know this can be really hard. I've got two daughters, 23 and 16, that are very busy, that are very involved, that have a lot going on. And it's overwhelming at times when one of them comes home from school or work and they want to dump all their things out. I'm just like, oh my God, crazy day. I'm overloaded. I need a break. But then I start to think about, if I don't know what's going on in their life, if I don't know their heart, how can I lead and guide them? How can I understand when they're struggling, where they're struggling, and how to support them? Another important emphasis around presence versus provision is having unhurried time for our children. I cannot tell you guys how often early on in my parenting journey that I did not make enough space for my kids. And there was this really, not really, kind of cheesy Christian movie. I can't even remember it right now. I'm going to link in the show notes. I'm going to go Google it and I'm going to find it. It was a Christian movie, and it was about all of these police officers that banded together to create this covenant around being great fathers. But in the process, there's this one scene. I'm actually going to link to the scene. I want you to check out this video because it was just so powerful. This dad, he goes to the library with his daughter, and for some reason, they're both in the car together. I can't recall it all right now, but the dad's playing music. I think they were with a friend too, and the friend went inside to grab something. And so the daughter jumps out of the back seat of the car. She hops into the parking lot right there, and she just starts dancing to the music, and she invites her dad out to dance. And I'm getting emotional thinking about this. And the dad declines. And then fast forward, punchline, the daughter ends up dying in a tragic accident. And the dad finds himself back at a later date in that parking lot. And he has a vision about his daughter asking him to get out of the car. And just the regret of not being present in that moment for something so embarrassing, so silly, but so stinking meaningful. You guys, we've got to make space. I know you're busy. I'm busy. There's a lot going on, but we cannot get this time back. God forbid if tragedy strikes. But even just as they grow up, I cannot believe I am a couple years away from my oldest daughter getting engaged and my youngest daughter going away to school. I'm trying to hold on to the last minutes. And I remember so many times not wanting to sit down on the floor and play with them, not wanting to take them out on a date, not wanting to do something that I thought was so silly but was so important to them. I would do so much to get that all back. And then finally, presence. See them and be seen by them. Be honest. Be transparent. Obviously, there's certain things that kids can't know, shouldn't know, whatever. But, even something as silly as, it wasn't silly, it was important, but I did an exercise the other day where I asked my wife for a project I was working on and a presentation I had to give. On a scale of 1 to 10, how was I? And how did she rate me? And she rated me a 9, which I was so pumped on. And then I asked the scariest question. I said, well, what could I do to move from a 9 to a 10? And she shared with me that, there's times when I'm frustrated at work and I come home and sometimes I can be a little bit more harsh or sharp with her or the kids. And first of all, I wanted to get really defensive. But then once I finally settled in, I was like, no, I can work on that. Man, she gave me a 9. But also, oh, I want to get better. So I got something to work on. So that night we were at dinner, just me, my wife, and my oldest daughter. And I shared that with my daughter because I'd shared it on Instagram. And it gave us a great opportunity to talk about that. I was allowing my daughter in to see me for who I am. I'm not perfect. And I think too often, the only ways that we ever show our children we're not perfect is when we fly off the handle at them. And then maybe later on we apologize and we tell them, I'm not perfect. I'm really sorry. Do that. But we've got to remember this. Our children are going to remember far more about how it felt for us to be around them than what we gave them. They want us. They don't really want our stuff. Even the kids that are desperately seeking more stuff are usually seeking that as the result of an absence of the presence of a father and a mother that are truly invested into their lives. Why is this so hard for us? Why is this so hard? You love Jesus. You love your family. You work so hard. Why is it? Well, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind for me, and I think these are important to consider. One of the reasons it's so hard to consistently be present for our kids is because we don't see the measurable metrics of success in the same way we do in the professional world. You see, at work, we win with performance, with precision, with productivity. But what does a win look like at home? I mean, eventually, maybe if our kids don't destroy their lives, that's a win. But sometimes it's hard. So it can be hard for us to focus to be so intently focused at work on things that are so structured, and then at home it's just not. And so it can be challenging to stick with that. Another thing too is in the professional world, it's easy for us to put our head down, to create discipline, to create structure. We're probably disciplined. I'm a very habitual person, very disciplined. It drives people nuts sometimes. Some people would call me OCD without the diagnosis. But you see, at home, our kids just want to play. Our kids just want to be free. Our kids just want to kind of live life. We need to create structure for them so they grow up as good human beings, but at the same time, for the love of God, just give them some space to be kids. And that's hard for us because we are all about discipline, all about structure, and all about high performance. I believe one of the reasons it's most difficult for us to deal with this as high performing men is because the rules are different. At work, they're very structured. At home, they're often not. And we try to fit the same shape into different holes. That's a mistake. Here are a couple of statements that I've heard Christian men make recently that I just want to share with you in the event that you are falling into a trap like this. Number one is I've heard men say, I am not wired for emotional connection. Can I tell you something? That is a lie from the pit of hell. God has created us all with emotion, with a heart, with a love and a desire. What has happened is because of, if you've read my book, you know this, because of a lot of times of the wounds that we have incurred, the scars that we wear, it has been conditioned out of us. But that doesn't mean we can't recondition it back into us. We have to unlearn those things. We have to heal and grow from our past, and we have to change our behavior, change our ways. You are capable of emotional connection. The second mindset trap that I hear oftentimes is I'll spend more time with my kids, and even I'll spend more time with my wife once things stabilize. You and I both know that we are hustlers, that we are hard workers, that we are going to continue to get out. I will never retire. I love working. I will always find a way to work. My dad is the same way, and I love that about him. I can't sit still for good reasons. There will never be a time that life completely stabilizes. I don't want to retire on a beach. And so I will never have time unless I make. The third thing that I hear oftentimes with men in this stage of life where they're building, particularly in the professional landscape, is quality time matters over the quantity of time. I get that. It is important to have quality time, but that's a really convenient cop out, in my opinion. Now, can I date my daughters every day? No. Should I date them every month? Absolutely. Am I? No. I need to do a better job. Now, we spend time together a lot. We're together. Both of my kids live at home. I love that. We vacation together a lot. I love that. But I still need to spend more intentional time with them. I only have so much time left. I have realized time and time again throughout my life seasons in which I was there, but I wasn't present. I was present, but I wasn't truly connected. And I recognize that when I am as deeply invested into my kids as I am right now, I see a difference. I see a difference in our relationship. I see a difference in our family relationship. I see a difference in the relationship between my kids, between my wife and my kids, between my kids and their friends, between my kids and their boyfriends. It has huge impacts when I am present, physically, emotionally, and spiritually present, giving my kids intentional time. I can always do a better job. And maybe I should have asked my kids to rate me before this episode, because that would have been great to share. But What would your kids rate you? Now, if they're really little, they probably don't know any better, but eventually they're going to figure it out. So, as I promised early on in this episode, I want to land with a framework that I think will be helpful for you if you are challenged in this area. If you resonate with one of those quotes, if you resonate with something I said, you're like, man, I think I could be drifting, or I absolutely know that I am drifting. By the way, the first thing I can do is encourage you to get into community with other brothers that are experiencing similar challenges but aren't settling for those challenges. That's what our Men of Greatness community has been created for. It's built on School, which is a private platform. It's only us there. Again, 4 days in, 22 guys. We will continue to build out. We've got incredible things coming up, daily posts of encouragement and interaction, Ask the Expert segments where I'm bringing in some of my other colleagues and friends that are just experts in their niches: fitness, health, marketing, building businesses, marriage, so many other things. Like you got to get in. This is going to be an incredible opportunity for you. So I cannot encourage you enough to step into that. We focus on the 5 pillars of greatness. Covenant connections, which is what I'm talking about here, is one of those. So I cannot encourage you enough to invest in yourself by investing into a community. And the investment right now is your time in Men of Greatness. It's free, but you're going to have to engage or I'm going to boot you back out. Okay, back to the framework. There is a framework. There's 3 things. So we call this the Fatherhood Legacy Map. That resource will be available in its complete form down in the show notes. You can download that Fatherhood Legacy Map. But here are 3 questions that you can ask yourself that will get you headed in the right direction, that will get you back on the right track if you feel like you're starting to drift in this area. Number 1 is, what 3 values do I want my kids to embody? What 3 values do I want my kids to embody? Number 2, what moments would I want them to remember? What specific moments in life would I want my children to remember most? And number 3, how am I intentionally shaping those experiences now? So thinking about those moments, how am I intentionally shaping those things now? Thinking about those values, how am I intentionally shaping those values now? Or am I? So those are 3 questions you can ask. You can download the Fatherhood Legacy Map. Again, it's down below in the show notes. It's a great, simple tool for you to determine whether or not you're on the right track, doing the right things. And I'm going to encourage us week after week, pray and get into the Word of God. Pray about this. Ask God to open your eyes to the places that you may not be seeing clearly. Ask God to open your eyes to the places that you've put on a mask. Open your eyes to the places where you've put a barrier in between you and addressing these things. Open your eyes to the excuses that you're making. God, help me to do these things. And read the Word of God. I guarantee you, it will produce fruit. Look, at your legacy is not in what your children inherit. It's in who they become because of you. That is what it means to be a man of greatness. That is the type of legacy that a man of greatness leaves, is one that transforms those that God has entrusted to us, our wife, our children, and the community that God surrounds us with. The question is whether or not you are pursuing that type of legacy. And we're going to keep building on this. Next week, we're going to be talking about why every man needs brotherhood. I started to allude to it here, but isolation is killing you. It is killing you moment by moment, day by day. You know, I've had so many guys join our community and they're like, yeah, I've put myself here. I've slowly started to escape. I gained weight. I just retreated. I stopped being a great father. I retreated. I wasn't being that wonderful to my wife. I retreated. I failed in a business. I retreated. Man up. You're not going to turn it all around in one day, but by investing into brothers, a community of brothers, you will start to see change because they will lift you up, even if they have to grab you and pull you by your shirt collar in order to do that. You guys, we can't settle Our families cannot afford for us to settle. We have an opportunity to make incredible impacts in our homes, in our communities, in our country, in this world. The question is whether or not you will continue to pursue the calling that God has on your life to be a man of greatness. Like this, share this with another brother. Make sure you are subscribed for all of our updates. Hop into that community, download the other resources that we got there. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Peace.